Hi, plant-based nutritionista here. Welcome to the Q&A. Last week we did a live Q&A. We had some technical difficulties. There was some lag time, some pauses, and it was difficult for people to get their questions answered. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take the questions that you asked last week in the live Q&A, and I'm going to answer them in this Q&A video today. This is going to be a little bit longer of a video, so get your red raspberry leaf tea, sit down, and enjoy the video. We'll just get right into the questions. The first question that we had in the live Q&A was, how many calories does a woman over 50 need to consume? And this really is an individual thing, so it would be really difficult for me to just in general say a woman over 50 needs X amount of calories. So what I'm going to basically, first thing what I'll say is this. Um, it depends on how tall you are. So are you 5 feet tall? Are you 5'8"? That makes a big difference. And as well as your exact age. So are you 50? Are you 60? Are you 70? That's going to make a difference as well. How much are you exercising? There are a lot of factors that go into this. Do you have any endocrine issues, any thyroid issues? Um, do you have a background of obesity in your family? That would just indicate that maybe you don't have the most high metabolism. So there's so many factors that go into this that I wouldn't be able to give you a specific number. But then again, even if we had all of that information and we entered it into a calorie counting calculator and it spits out a number, you might be a person who needs several hundred calories more, or you might be someone who might end up gaining weight on the amount of calories that it says that you need. It's so individual. It's just really difficult, even with the most advanced technology. In fact, I went and had my basal metabolic rate tested at a university nearby, and when it came out, it actually, my basal metabolic rate came out higher than the amount of calories I eat in a day now, and I'm not super lean, trust me. So you just don't know. So what I'm going to suggest for you is to focus on true hunger. When you feel that deep sensation of hunger, not just that growly kind of tummy sensation, um, get in tune with your body, your body's hunger cues, your body's satiation cues, and focus your calories around calorie density, which means lower calorie density foods, fruits, vegetables, um, moving up into legumes, whole grains, things like that, avoiding more calorie dense foods from breads, pastas, um, and then on into sugars, nuts, seeds, those kinds of things. Avoiding oils and other really high fat foods. The more that you eat on the lower side of the calorie density, your weight's going to normalize and it's going to be a lot easier to maintain a healthy weight. So rather than focusing on calories, what I want you to do is I want you to focus on your hunger and satiation cues, and I want you to focus on calorie density. And I do have a video on that explains weight loss and calorie density. If you want to watch that, I can link that below. Okay, next question is, I weight lift. Do I need to take protein powders in order to get enough protein in a day? This is a really interesting question, and I get this one a lot. Protein is revered in our society. And there are a lot of reasons behind that. And I'm not going to spend all the time getting into that. But one of the reasons that protein powders became so popular is the cheese industry was genius in coming up with a way to deal with their waste. So what happens is when they're making cheese, whey is the waste. And they used to just spray it over fields or do other things with it to just get rid of it. Well, then they realized that they can dry it, package it, and sell it as a protein powder to unsuspecting people who think they need more protein than they're eating, and there you go, protein supplement. Now we have protein made out of just about anything. Um, do I think there's never a case for having a little bit of supplemented protein? No, I'm not going to say that. But in general, no, you do not need protein supplements. What's going to happen as you work out and you start building muscle? You need more calories. You're going to need more calories in a day. And in those calories, you're going to get more protein. If you are eating a whole foods diet, um, you're going to get sufficient protein for whatever body size your body goes to. And there are bodybuilders out there who do not use protein powders. And if you would like to see what they're eating and what they're doing, I think that's a really good idea for you to search around and find bodybuilders that don't use protein powders because they aren't necessary. If you are concerned, you can focus on some high protein plant foods. For instance, 1 cup of buckwheat groats has about 22 grams of protein in it. A cup of lentils is about 19.8 grams of protein. Focusing on things like that, you'll get plenty of protein. So you really don't need to worry about that. I'll give you myself as an example. So I work out every single day except Sundays. I've lifted weights. I've done high intense interval training. I've done all kinds of things from yoga to weightlifting throughout the years. And I have had my blood tested periodically for protein levels. And interestingly, even in the times where I'm eating a lot of fruit, I'm not paying that much attention. I'm not eating bunches of soy or legumes or anything like that. I eat a lot of salads, a lot of fruit. My protein intake sometimes like 25, 30 grams a day. Now realize I'm only 4'11" and hover around 100 pounds. So I'm a smaller person, but not a lot of protein at all. And I'm always right down the middle of my blood test. So I've never had a protein issue at all. Sometimes I eat more than that because sometimes I'll eat edamame or sometimes I do have lentils and then my protein's up around 46. I've eaten maybe as much as 50, but in general, I get around an average of around 30 grams a day. And I've always been right down the middle protein wise. So it really isn't that hard. And I do have a video on how much protein do you need in a day, and I really suggest that you watch that. I will link it below because that's really going to explain to you why you don't need as much protein as you think you do. And really, the supplement companies, they have a vested interest in you thinking you can't get enough protein from food because they want to sell you, these $60 canisters of protein powder. And so a lot of the research out there on fitness and bodybuilding and supplements is funded by the supplement companies themselves. And you need to realize that. All this, what we call bro science, stuff like that, they're funded by supplement companies. So of course you need their supplement. That's what they're paying for. That's what they're paying these researchers to do. So you really need to be careful about where you're getting your information from. You can get enough protein from whole foods no matter what type of exercise you are doing. So hopefully that answers your question, and check out the link below on protein needs, and hopefully that will clarify some more for you. Okay, the next question is sugar bad for you? Now, this is a really loaded question because do you mean is white refined sugar bad for you, or are you saying is oatmeal bad for you because it turns to sugar in the blood and that's bad for you? Um, so let's start with refined sugars, isolated refined sugars. In general, no, they're not good for you. They're not good for you. Do I think it's bad if you sprinkle a couple teaspoons of brown sugar on your oatmeal in the morning? No, I don't think that's bad at all. Um, is it bad if you're eating cookies every day or donuts? Yes, it is. Okay. I don't think little sprinklings of maple syrup on some pancakes or something like that is a big deal at all. Um, but I wouldn't consider that a healthy thing to eat or have in large quantities at all. The problem that we get with is sugar bad for you is a lot of people believe that fruit is bad for you because it has sugar in it, or potatoes are bad because they turn to sugar in the blood. What people aren't realizing is that your body has to maintain a certain very tight range of blood sugar from about 70 milligrams to 100 milligrams per deciliter, I believe it is. Milli, whatever. I can't even can't even think. Anyway, so your body has to maintain this very, very tight range. I don't even know why I can't think of what that is right now. Anyway, um, so when you eat a potato and it turns to sugar, what's happening is it's fueling your glucose in your blood. And glucose levels raise, insulin is secreted, it allows the glucose into the cells and provides energy for your cells. It's a good thing. That is exactly what your body was designed to do. Exactly what it was designed to do. That blood sugar is absolutely necessary. Okay? So if we're talking about fruit, for instance, or a whole food, no, those are not bad for you. If we're talking about white refined sugars of any kind, or I shouldn't say white, because not all of them are white, any type of syrupy, crystalline substance of sugar, is it good for you? No, it's not. And it definitely is something that you do need to limit in your diet. I don't have a problem with sprinkling some brown sugar on something or having a dessert once in a while. No, I don't have a problem with that. But in general, and especially if there are some conditions that can be very aggravated by sugar. If you're a woman that has PCOS, sugar is a no-go because it stimulates your ovaries to produce excessive testosterone, and it just is not something that you should be doing. So, but in general, isolated refined sugars not good. Whole foods are fine. What do I think about juicing? So, do I think that there's never a time that you should juice? No. There are times that I've recommended juicing. So if you watch my gastroparesis video, that was definitely a time that I juiced. And it was because my stomach was so overfull and I couldn't eat much and it would sit in my stomach for so long and be uncomfortable. I needed something that had less fiber but had nutrients in it so that I could get the nutrients I needed without things that were slowing stomach emptying. So in that case, yes, I did juicing, but I did mostly vegetable juicing. So it would have cucumbers and celery and a head of lettuce and lemon and um, bell peppers, all kinds of vegetables, and I put a little bit of apple in there to sweeten it, and that was it. That's the kind of juice I'm talking about. And if there is a time that you need to have juice, that's what you need to be. A whole big thing of watermelon juice or a whole big thing of orange juice. Um, Fruit does have fructose, and in the whole orange, the whole apple, the whole fruit, there is a lot of fiber, antioxidants, there's protein, there's fat. I know, surprise. Um, it is a whole food with all the components that are necessary for your body. When we juice, we lose most of the fiber, most of the protein. We lose a lot of nutritional value. In fact, a lot of the antioxidants in the fruit are attached to the fiber. So you're actually losing a lot of that benefit when you juice. So that goes that all of that fructose, when we're getting 32-ounce glasses of juice of like an orange juice or something like that and drinking massive amounts, that's an excessive amount of fructose that's going directly to the liver and can be really hard on your liver. And high fructose corn syrup consumption, high fructose consumption can be associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's just not something that I would do on purpose without another reason behind it. I don't think it's a really good idea to juice. Eat your food. You can eat far less oranges than you could the juice because of the fiber, because of all of the other components that are contained in a whole food. So juicing for the general average person, no, I don't recommend doing it on a regular basis. I do juice sometimes, but I do vegetable juices and just add a little bit of fruit for sweetness. So I do that. A lot of times I do it when my digestion is struggling a little bit, but and I do have other times when I recommend people do that, but in general, no. And there are also other situations where juicing would be contraindicated for some people. So you need to be careful with that. I know it's a really popular thing, but you do need to be careful with what you're juicing and what you're drinking. And don't be excessive with it. You don't need to be drinking 64 ounces of fruit juice. Eat your food, okay? Um, Next question, do I need to focus on low glycemic index foods? Okay, this drives me crazy. The glycemic index was created for sick people. It was not created for healthy people, okay? It was created for people with type 2 diabetes. It has no application in a healthy diet whatsoever. It is not necessary. Low glycemic index foods were designed for people with insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, to try to control their blood sugar levels and control the amount of medication that they had to take. That's what it's for. So if you are a healthy individual, no, you do not need to pay attention to it. In fact, the glycemic index does not have any application to a food that's healthy versus not. So, for instance, it would indicate that a candy bar, a Snickers bar, was healthier than a carrot. No, it doesn't work, and it's because of the fat that's contained in the Snickers bar, which, in fact, using some of those things can actually aggravate your type 2. This is absolutely not something that a healthy individual should be following whatsoever. If you're eating whole foods, you don't need to worry about it. Potatoes, rice, any of those things are perfectly normal, perfectly healthy. Your body will deal with it naturally in the way it was designed to. So creating insulin gets into the cell, it provides fuel. Perfect. That's exactly what your body's meant to do. Now, if you're talking about insulin secretion and high insulin and it makes you fat, realize that a steak actually causes a higher insulin spike than some sugary foods. Why? Because fat also requires insulin to get into the cell. So just because you're following low glycemic index does not mean that you're keeping your insulin levels low. So it it's really just focus on whole foods. It doesn't matter if it's a potato, it doesn't matter if it's rice or fruit or whatever it is. If you're focusing on healthy foods, whole foods, that's all you need to do. All of these technological, what glycemic index and all of this stuff, it is completely unnecessary. I would throw that completely out the window. Do I need to avoid all high fat foods? Absolutely not. Not for the average person. Um, In fact, I've run into so many young women who tell me that they went on a low fat diet and they lost their period. And um, the reality is for a lot of these people, so there's a message out there of doctors who've been dealing with very sick people. If you have heart disease and you are trying to manage heart disease, you've already had a heart attack, you've had stents put in, you know that you have high cholesterol or whatever going on, then you're in a different category, okay? If you're a 25-year-old young woman who's active and healthy and of normal weight, no, you do not need to avoid high fat foods. Okay? This is completely, and I'm not talking about oils. I'm talking about avocados, coconut, some walnuts or chia seeds, things like this. No, you do not need to avoid them. In fact, you shouldn't. If you're overweight and you do eat a higher fat diet, then that's a different story. And for someone like me, if you have PCOS, your body tends to gain weight really easily, and you know what I'm talking about, right? You need to stay on the lower end of fat as well, just because of the insulin resistance that your body tends to. So if you're someone that has type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, heart disease, a lot of these illnesses, you need to be more careful with your fat intake than a young person. If you are recovering from an eating disorder, you absolutely should not be avoiding tahini, nuts, seeds, avocados, any of those things. Absolutely not. So it depends on the individual how much fat, high fat foods should be in your diet. If you're overweight, then obviously that's something that you need to limit and figure out where the fat intake needs to be in order for you to lose weight. But in general, no, you do not need to avoid those unless you have a health condition that would indicate that you need to. Okay? Is fruit healthy and should I limit fruit? So we kind of talked about this before. Fruit is perfectly healthy. In fact, during the summer, a lot of times I eat a lot of fruit. Sometimes my breakfast is just fruit in the summer. In the winter, it's a little different. I like oatmeal or other warming foods because it's so cold outside. But fruit is perfectly healthy. It contains all the fiber, protein, um, even a little bit of fat. Um, it only contains maybe 2% of your essential fat needs in one piece of fruit, so it's not a ton. But it is a whole food. It contains carbohydrates, fats, protein, fiber, antioxidants. They're very high in vitamins. Fruits are low in minerals, so eating an only fruit diet isn't going to provide you with the minerals that you need. But in general, fruit is extremely healthy. The antioxidants prevent cancer. In fact, if you have PCOS or other endocrine disorders, other disorders like that with oxidative stress, um, those antioxidants are critical for health and lowering your risk of cancer and all kinds of things. So fruit needs to be in your diet. You should not be avoiding it. And if you do have diabetes, I suggest you check out Diabetic Robbie, I believe that's his name, um, who eats mostly fruit-based diet and has type 1. His story is absolutely amazing. So I just want you to kind of look at people who are doing this and succeeding and realize that a whole food isn't bad for you, even fruit. And this goes back to the whole idea of sugar being bad for you and fruit has sugar. Um, the only people I suggest limiting fruit initially is people who have high triglycerides. And I'm not talking about you have high triglycerides because you are eating a bunch of donuts and cookies and stuff like that. I'm talking about someone who's already eating a whole foods plant-based diet and still has elevated triglycerides. You might need to look at your sugar. If you're eating a lot of sugar, that's probably part of the reason. But if you're not, fruit sometimes in some sensitive individuals can cause elevated triglycerides and you might need to limit it. It's a rare situation, but if you are in that situation, you might need to look at the fruit for a little bit. If you're eating a lot of nuts and seeds and a lot of higher fat foods, along with sugars, you might need to look at the high fat foods more than just fruit. So there's kind of a balance that needs to be looked at with a lot of these things. You might need to work with someone who understands whole food plant-based nutrition who might be able to help you tweak things. Some diabetics at first, if they eat fruit, their sugar spikes really high after coming off of high fat diets. So sometimes I'll have them eat a little bit different initially until their body can adjust. But those are just isolated situations that need to be dealt with individually. But in general, absolutely not. You do not need to limit fruit in any way, shape, or form. Um, People have run into dental issues. Fruitarians often do run into dental issues, though. You need to make sure that you're not getting fruit stuck in your teeth. And I would recommend brushing your teeth and rinsing out your mouth if you're doing smoothies or eating fruit, just to make sure that you're not getting um, pieces of fruit on your teeth and that bacteria producing acids as it eats the fruit sugars on your teeth. Um, And the last question that we had from the Q&A was, should I keep my fat intake to 10% of my calories? No, don't do it. Don't do it. Um, I see this far, far, far too often. Um, Let me just give you an example. Did you know that a zucchini is 16% of calories from fat? Oatmeal is 16% of calories from fat. Okay? There are there are not fruits, I'm sorry, vegetables that contain more than 10% of calories from fat. Vegetables. A lot of people think, oh, where do you get your healthy fat from? And don't even realize that vegetables have fat. Zucchini, 16% of the calories in a zucchini come from fat. And a lot of that is essential fat. So to try to manipulate the diet in order to keep it on this very, very low end of fat, no, you should not be doing that. Um, it there is a time and a place for reducing fat in individuals who have type 2 diabetes or individuals who have heart disease. If you're sick, that's a whole other story. If you are a healthy, young, active person who does not have any health issues at all, absolutely, unequivocally, no, do not drop your calories to 10%. A lot of women that I run into lose their period. So many young girls. I started seeing young girls losing their periods going on these high fruit raw diets. Um, Probably the first time I heard about one was probably 13 years ago. The mother was actually asking about my daughter's on this vegan diet and she lost her period. And a lot of people think, oh, vegan diet, that's not healthy. No, it wasn't her vegan diet. It was the fact that her fat intake was too low for she was 16 years old. You know, her body is still growing. So when I'm talking about fat, I'm talking about avocados, tahini, nuts, seeds. Now, if you look at Chef AJ, I love her. She was eating a whole foods plant-based diet and was overweight. And her issue was excessive consumption of avocados, nuts, seeds, high-fat foods. So there's different ends of the spectrum here, okay? But I can guarantee you that Chef AJ is not entering her dietary intake into a calculator and making sure that it's only 10% of calories from fat all the time. She just eats food and doesn't eat the high fat foods because she struggles with hypothyroidism and other issues that make losing weight more difficult. So in her individual situation, she eats lower fat. That's fine. She's not worrying about menstruation. She's not worrying about a lot of these things that young girls would be worrying about. With young women that are coming from disordered eating backgrounds, do not count your fat percentage intakes and do not try to keep your fat percentage that low. You may lose your period and you may struggle with dry skin. You may struggle with a lot of health issues if you do that. If you are a young person of average weight or even a little bit older person, like over 40 like me, okay, um, I don't eat 10% of my calories from fat. I do eat tahini sometimes. I don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds, but if I do, I might have a walnut half with a date or something for a dessert. But you don't need to be afraid of those high fat foods. And you'll notice there will be a balance, and each individual has their own balance of how much fat you need and in order to be healthy. And it's going to be different for each person depending on your metabolism, depending on what other health issues you have, um, hormonal imbalances that you might have. So you really just need to look at your individual self. What do you need in order to maintain a healthy weight, healthy menstruation, healthy body, healthy hormones, everything in your body is functioning well? That's what you need to be looking at. That's what you need to use to determine how much fat you need to eat in your diet. Do not be afraid of avocados. Do not be afraid of some chia seeds or something like that. Whole foods, though. I'm not talking about olive oil. I'm not talking about coconut oil, and I'm not going to deal with that issue in this video because it would make it too long. Just eat a whole foods diet. And if you're noticing you're gaining weight or you're unable to lose weight, reduce your fat intake a little bit, maybe reduce those nuts or seeds or, reduce the volume of food. Adjust things to where you can get to an ideal body weight and your body is happy and everything's functioning properly. So that is all of the questions that we had in the live Q&A. Hopefully this was helpful to you and hopefully it gave you some ideas of to follow a little bit of more understanding of some of these really popular issues. These are some of the most popular questions that I get, and that's why I wanted to make sure I got this video out there for you. I know it was a little bit longer. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sticking with me through this video, and I hope that you enjoyed everything. I know my face, I don't like, just as an like a side note, I don't like having my face really big, huge on the screen, and that's why I do slides and have me in a little corner. So this is a little bit awkward for me, my big face on the screen, but hopefully, Hopefully this was informative for you. If you enjoyed this video, please like it below and subscribe for more nutrition videos, and I will see you next time.